And just like that, today, Joran, the Prince of Snow and Blood, has ended. It is the first spring anime on my list that has concluded. The ending was an alright attempt at a series that overall was just not very average. At the very end, Sawa and Jin have a confrontation where Jin gives her some more information about how Jin was in love with her mother and wanted to protect Sawa and needed her to move on to live her life with Asahi. And it's also implied at the end in the diaries that Jin saved Asahi with Sawa's blood, which is why at the very end, I'll get to the end, but they have a fight, and Jin lets himself get slashed across the chest when he's fighting Sawa, and he ends up just leaving her behind, and she ends up having a breakdown. And Jin says, "I'm gonna do this fight. You're gonna stay behind and try to live your life." Jin gets there in his little crow form and just starts obliterating the Shogun's men. Gets to the Shogun and is disappointed to see that it's just some really weak, pathetic, frail, old, scared man. Just completely dishonorable and shameless. He begs for his life, offers Jin money, and Jin just kind of looks at him in pity and says, "Wow, that this is not what I was expecting," and declares himself the man that clears the trash of the world, which is a pretty neat scene, and cuts the Shogun down. And then the entire place catches on fire, and Jin just allows himself to burn down with everything, and he dies, I suppose you could say. Sawa looks on from a distance and just cries about it all. He just calls Jin a idiot. As for Hana, she decides to leave with her daughter, which I think she ended up naming Sawa. Her man is still alive. He also faked his own death. But they didn't take Sahi with them because they figured that Sahi would be too stubborn to go because how she's all about Sawa. And she ends up going to this event that's going on because there's a new government forming. People are out in the streets. They're handing out newspapers showing this new government reformation. And Sawa's out there, and she feels something from behind her, and it's Rinko. Rinko is still alive. Somehow Rinko is still alive. I suppose gives Sawa a stab in the back. So this makes the ending very uncomfortable because I'm watching what's happening. I'm like, okay, she just got stabbed in the back. She's going to die. And she spends these moments with Asahi. That she goes home and talks to Asahi, and and she's talking to Sawa about what they're gonna do tomorrow, what they're gonna eat, the food they're gonna make. And and Sawa's getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and her speech is starting to get slower and slower and slower. They end up sitting together, and Asahi has no idea what's going on. She just thinks that Sawa is tired or cold or something. But then Asahi soon realizes that Sawa's hand is cold. And Sawa's not saying anything, but at the very end she says sorry. And they're talking about flowers, and during the conversation, Sawa just stops talking. She dies. She bleeds out to death. You can see the blue blood from behind. And her crow sees this and just kind of flies away. Then we have a time skip where Hana's daughter is being nosy and reading the diary between Sawa and Asahi. And that's where it reveals that Asahi was saved using Sawa's blood, that it had healed her. That's how Jin did it, apparently. And Asahi shows up. She's now turning 17. She looks just like Sawa. And she's just trying to figure out how she's going to move on because she had made life plans. She wanted Sawa to teach her all these things, but with her dead, she has to do it herself. So at the very end, you can see the white crow return, which is I don't know if it's the same crow or not. And you can see Asahi's eyes lit up blue, that she has these powers. And that's the conclusion. That's the conclusion of Joran, the Prince of the Snow and Blood. It was a struggle to watch. The majority of it is terrible. The majority of the episodes were not that good. It had, as I said in all the other videos, there are lots of embarrassingly bad moments, such as the meetings in the beginning between Sawa, Jin, and Hana and Tsukishiro. Just the really bad jazz that made the whole thing look like a really just terrible. I could not take it seriously. The writing was just messy. It was drunk. It was all over the place. You couldn't believe anything that happened because they would just do a complete flip on it in the next episode. So it was a complete disaster. But they do manage to redeem a couple of things at the end. For example, Jin Kuzuhara finally gets his character development way towards the end, but towards the beginning, he's kind of a meaningless, soulless character. Sawa is just pain and suffering throughout. She all constantly feeling aimless, constantly just depressed, crying, just put down by her past. She was just a tragic character. But when she finally finds a purpose, which is to be with Asahi, she gets stabbed from behind by Rinko, and that's the end of Sawa. And Hana, this was the first time we see her without lipstick. I think she looks better without lipstick. And Tsukishiro was a character that could have been good, but got killed off anticlimactically. And we all knew. I mean, it was pretty obvious it was Jin that did it. There was nobody else it could have been. Even as far as back as that, it was easy to tell. I'm curious as to what's gonna happen next. But it was a pretty huge time skip. The only character that's still alive that could cause trouble is Rinko, but it's been several years later, and Asahi and baby Hana's kid are still alive and well. So I got it. Overall, this is just a very average show. It had its moments, and I'm gonna be very busy as more of the spring season is gonna be ending this week. A lot of shows ending. But that was Joran, the Princess of Snow and Blood.